People often ask me why I started this business. The truth, it had nothing to do with money or status. Well, maybe a little bit about money. I was searching for financial freedom, but it was more about purpose, about fulfillment, and deep down knowing there was more I was meant to do. In today's episode, I'm sharing the real story behind it all and why understanding your own why might be the most important step you can take, whether you're leading, coaching, parenting, or searching for your next level. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport as I see it is to see your vision become a reality, find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. Back in 2013 was when the idea for having my own business first came to me. It was nothing that I'd ever thought about seriously. I can remember when I was coming to the end of uni, my cricket coach at the time, he knew I did a PE teaching degree, and he said, you know what you should be doing? You should be going into schools. God, I was telling him how much I loved primary school teaching, the PE primary pracs, and how much better they were than secondary, and which was a reflection of where I was at as a young person just coming out, and my secondary pracs where I felt like I was only just older than the kids I was teaching. I found that quite intimidating, but for the primary schools I loved it. And yeah, my cricket coach suggested that most primary school teachers don't want to do PE, that it'd be great to have a business where you go to primary schools and approach them and say, oh, well, come in and do your PE lessons. Now, he was ahead of his time because that's pretty common practice these days, but it had never been thought of at that point. So there's an opportunity, first opportunity lost in business. And if you've been in business, you know that you miss plenty of opportunities, but you also, if you're in the right space, you also attract other better opportunities. Some opportunities you're meant to miss. So that was my first thought of business, but I didn't think of it again. I was always going to be someone who worked for someone else and getting to retirement. But then, as I've spoken about many times before, that all changed when my dad passed away in 2005 and had me questioning everything and starting to look for answers for where my life was heading. And once I signed up to my first mentor, and then I went to another workshop that my mentor had suggested that I go to. I think I had a free ticket to go because I was already signed up with this guy. And I go to this like business building thing. It was like a futurist type arrangement, and the guy was talking about like what you can do in business with very little effort. And one of the first tasks with my first mentor was building like a game plan for life. This is something I'd never done, having these goals and plans and details around where my life was heading. And he let us go and go and create this big vision, and then he came back a couple of months later and said, now you need to go bigger. You've already gone through some growth, like you go for the impossible dreams. And he talked about some of the impossible dreams that he thought was so far out of the realms of possibility that it actually come to be. And so that's what I did, and I went bigger. I'm like, actually, I'd love to start my own business. I was already starting to think about how I wanted to dictate my own financial future, my own time. When you have kids, you sort of think about that. How can I have more time with them? And so that was the first sort of idea of having a business. And then it wasn't until I went to this other conference where I'm seeing you can create newspapers with a few, all the things that AI do now, but it would like pull information from a whole lot of different sources that you followed and create this newspaper and all of these different things. And I'm like, actually, I can start a business now. It's my first incarnation of business in that very formative stage in 2013, and then actually getting started on creating it in 2014 was working with young people in sport. And my vision was all based on my own experience. So this is why I got into business in the first place, is that as a youngster, I wanted to go and do all of the things. I wanted to go and try out for reps in soccer and cricket. I wanted to play rugby league. I wanted to try everything, but I was one of 5 kids. We were, I'd say, middle working class probably, one income, fibro house, all of those different things, and just the opportunities weren't there. And then having people tell me when I was much older and the opportunity had passed, saying, "Oh, you could have played National League, you could have played this, you could have played that." Now, whether that was true or not, it really reinforced to me, actually, well, what if I had got those opportunities? What if I had got into good rep systems and been able to improve? Because most of what I learned was by parents volunteering, and some of them were amazing. I've had blessed to have had some pretty amazing coaches over the years, but you know that when you're exposed to people at a higher level that you end up being dragged up with the crowd. And so my first idea for business was like, well, creating a pathway for children from a low socio-economic background to elite sport. And that's why I was passionate about business. I wanted to create that opportunity that I never had. Now, this still happens, like particularly in football, in soccer in Australia. User pays, it's like $2,500 to $3,500 to play at a representative level. That's mental. So there's still this need. And my business has gone full circle. I've worked with elite athletes, a little bit further along the path in business. Then I got into working with just everyone from corporate to business owners to people post-grief, all based on my own experience. And then come full circle back to sport, because it kind of found me again. I didn't chase it, which is interesting in itself. It's amazing how many of these opportunities come to you when it's just meant to be. So I share this because the why is so important for bringing that fulfillment. And I've found that there are many other whys and why I do what I do now, because I didn't do a great job as a sports dad. I was that typical parent that was trying to relive my missed opportunities through my children. One of them resisted it very early on and did a little bit of sport, but moved into other things like drama and music and so on, because they weren't interested in that push from dad. Now, for me, my experience was I wanted more pushing from my parents. I got very little. I now know what a blessing that was to have had so much choice, but I would have also liked a bit more of a kick up the arse, more of that drive, more of that, let's have a crack at this. So I made sure I provided the things I missed out on, and I probably took that too far. But I've learned so much along the journey as a result of that. So much of what I've created in that space is very much, again, linked from my own mistakes and how I learned and how I improved in those areas. And I mentioned the why. This is where we find purpose. This is where we find things that are fulfilling. This is what lights us up. This is what allows us to keep enjoying every single moment. And it doesn't mean that you don't have downtimes, and it doesn't mean you don't have dark days and challenges and tough moments. But it's so much easier to deal with and to come out the other side quickly when you have this purpose that just feels so right, that's just so fulfilling, so energizing. It's fun. I come home from doing days with a football club or with a school, just buzzing. It's like I haven't worked at all. So for you, it's thinking about, what is that why for you? What did you not get that you'd love to provide for other people? What have you learned along the way? What are some of those mistakes you made and you really went down that rabbit hole of, well, how can I be better in this area? Because someone somewhere will need your help, because they're facing that same challenge of wherever you were when you had that challenge originally. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for me in youth sport, 40-something years ago, we won't go into detail. And if you incorporate all of the parts of your why from all the different steps of the journey, which is what I'm doing now, just seems so effortless. Opportunities fall in your lap. The right opportunities, it's easy to say no to things because you know what's right and what's not right, instead of making decisions based on money, stature, ego, all of these different things. Make decisions based on alignment. Like, is this purposeful? Is this fulfilling? I get messages like I did this morning going, oh, do you do coaching with families? Yes, absolutely. That's something I wouldn't have said yes to maybe even 3 or 4 years ago. Self-doubt, hadn't done a heap of work with young people. Well, as it turned out, I've been working with young people my whole life. I just didn't sort of look at it that way. And it wasn't until I had parents reaching out to me saying, can you help me with my child, with my young athlete? I'm like, yeah, I guess I can. I'll give it a crack. So take a moment to look at your life and think, what is it that I needed and I didn't get? And I've now learnt on the other side of that. Imagine being able to provide that for someone, for them to have something that you needed but didn't have. So they never have to go through that. They don't have to go through it alone. They don't have to go through it without all the tips and tricks and knowledge that you now have. This will change your life for the better in so many different ways. It doesn't mean you have to go create a business. It doesn't mean you have to go create this massive thing. Just bring it to you every day. Bring it to your job. Bring it to your personal life. Bring it to all these different places. And that alone will fuel everything else you do. It'll make everything else worthwhile. It'll make everything else easier. And it'll give you energy that you didn't know you had. So you know now why I started my business, what it's given me. So what's your why to start on whatever the next project is for you? What is it that you know you need to take on that you're kind of ignoring? Whether it's a change of career, whether it's just a new job somewhere else, maybe your sleep needs attention, maybe your health needs attention, maybe you'd like to do a better job as that sporting parent. Maybe it's your golf, maybe it's your coaching, whatever it is. Have a think about that project. Get started on it and find your why that propels you through and to the end of that project in a way that's fulfilling, purposeful, and fun. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.